We've been on a journey this morning, and I thought it was appropriate that we should read now from the scripture everything that we've just experienced together. And so I'm reading from Mark chapter 15. It says, "A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it, and they crucified him. Dividing up his clothes, they cast lots to see what each would get. It was the third hour when they crucified him. The written notice of the charge against him read, 'The King of the Jews.' They crucified two robbers with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, 'So you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, come down from the cross and save yourself.' In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. 'He saved others,' they said, 'but he can't save himself. Let this Christ, this King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe.' Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him. At the 6th hour, darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, 'Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani,' which means, 'My God, why have you forsaken me?' When some of those standing near this heard what he said, they said, 'He's calling Elijah.' One man ran, filled a sponge with wine, vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. 'Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down,' he said. Then with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus heard this cry and saw how he died, he said, 'Surely this man was the Son of God.'" You know, it says in Luke chapter 23, 24, it says that those who were watching this beat their breasts. It was a demonstration that this event that they had come to see, which they were presuming they were just spectators at, was in fact something far, far more significant. And suddenly it dawned on them that they had just witnessed something that was of far greater significance than anything that they could have ever imagined. And I think that the big danger for all of us in this room this morning is that we will just allow this Easter to roll by and that we could miss the significance of it yet again. Because the truth is, and I don't know if we really realize this or not, but the truth is, Easter has become a very religious kind of event. It's become an event that causes us to gather ourselves, for sure. Yeah, that's the truth. But really, the focus seems to be more on, the soberness of the occasion and all of the religious trimmings that often go with that. And it's so easy for us. There's such a high potential for us this morning to even walk out of this building beating our breasts at the last moment saying, "Wow, I think I missed the real significance." Don't let that happen today. Don't let that happen today. Now, Christianity is still the largest religion in the world, and it's growing almost 3 times faster than its nearest competitor, which is Islam. Christianity is the fastest growing religion in the world. Christianity is impacting the world, and its influence is the single greatest factor that stops the world from tearing itself apart. I want you to know that you this morning, all of us in this room, are numbered amongst the millions upon millions, the hundreds of millions who will gather around the world this Easter. In fact, Easter is the largest single event that takes place in the world. And we're numbered amongst that great host of people today. The Church of God is gathering today all over the world to celebrate Easter. In just a little while, we're going to share communion together, and it's totally fitting that we should do that. Communion on Good Friday, I can't think of anything that's more important for me to be doing, and I hope that that's what's in your heart as well. This is really a holy moment for us because it is central to everything that we believe as Christians. This is the central truth of the gospel. Easter celebrates the central event of our faith, which is the death and the resurrection of Jesus. And today is Good Friday, and we've gathered here to remember his death. On Sunday, we'll be back again, and we're going to celebrate his resurrection. The death and the resurrection of Christ is the centerpiece of the Christian faith. And according to the Apostle Paul, he even says that if Jesus Christ had not been resurrected from the dead, then the Christian faith is worthless and futile. So everything that we're celebrating over these next couple of days is central to everything that those of us who call ourselves Christians believe. And it's why we can't miss the significance of these couple of days. The resurrection of Jesus authenticates Christianity, which is something that no other religion can do. Without Easter, there is no Christianity. And so I want to say again, my greatest concern this morning is that Easter could be just a religious experience for some of us. Now, I would sense that many of us would immediately kind of push back at me a little and say, well, it certainly isn't a religious experience for me. This is deep and meaningful. But I wonder if we really have the right to say that, because I do sincerely believe that we allow this incredible event that took place 2,000 years ago and which is still impacting us to just roll on by without us having a continuing daily impact on our life. Maybe it's something we do just because it's part of the culture of Christianity. So let's be clear, unless your experience this morning is a personal spiritual experience, then it is just a religious experience. I really want you to hear that. Unless you have a personal spiritual experience this morning, this is just a religious event, nothing more than that. One of the reasons that Jesus allowed himself to be put to death at Calvary 2,000 years ago was to put to death religion and all the rules and all the regulations that go with it. And if you're a regular church attender, well, we're really pleased that you're here today, but we're really pleased if you're not a regular church attender. More importantly, Jesus, who we celebrate today, is thrilled that you are in this place today, because I believe he wants this to be for you, as he wants it to be for everybody in the room, a personal experience this morning. He wants it to be for you the beginning of a new life with him, the beginning of a journey through life with him as your constant companion and leader. For those of us who are regular attenders here at Catalyst Church, our hope and prayer is that today you will have a fresh encounter with Jesus as well and be in awe of everything that he accomplished for us at Calvary. So let's get past the religious aspect of this and get really personal with Jesus this morning. As we've already indicated, we've been on a journey this morning. As soon as we walked in the door and as soon as that first AV began to play, we've been journeying through the Easter message. And I'm sure that you would join me in being very thankful to the creative team for the way in which that's been presented. But you know, Christians talk about being saved a lot. You know, it's part of the language of Christians. I'm a saved person. I've been saved. I've been born again. But the trouble is, we use that language rather glibly, and it doesn't always land like it's meant to land. It's not always having the impact that it should have. And when Christians talk about being saved, the cynic says, saved from what? I don't need saving. Well, good for you that you've been saved, but I was never lost. You know, the kind of comment that is said. Deep in our hearts, there's an incredible pushback at the idea that we need to be saved. Well, yes, you do. You do need to be saved. We all need saving. The skit guys reminded us that we all need saving, but there's enough arrogance in all of us to keep asking that question, saved from what? You know, why would you suggest I need to be saved? And Peter was on the inner circle with Jesus. There was Peter, James, and John. He was one of the three. Inner circle, close intimacy with Jesus, a friend of Jesus, personal friend of Jesus. Some of us here would claim to be intimate with Jesus, to have a very close relationship with Jesus. A lot of us here would probably say, you and me, Jesus. When Jesus told them that they would all disown him and lose courage in his hour of greatest need, Peter shouted the loudest. This one who had this intimacy with Jesus. He was the one who shouted the loudest, not me, Jesus. All of them, they might walk out on you, but not me. You and me. You and me, Jesus. I'll be there for you. And within hours of this rousing declaration of commitment to Jesus, he denied Jesus. He wandered off from Jesus, separated himself from Jesus. He accused others. He rebelled against Jesus. And that's from one who had a physical intimacy with Jesus. Let's just think back over the last 12 months for a minute. I wonder how many in this room have denied Jesus. Over the past 12 months, have you ducked your head, ducked around a corner to avoid being associated with Jesus? I wonder how many times, in some way, shape or form, you've denied Jesus. I wonder if you wandered off from Jesus over these past 12 months. I wonder if over these past 12 months you've considered it more convenient to keep Jesus at a distance like Peter did. Keep him at a distance so that you could do other things, so that you could put other things in places of priority. Other things instead of being here in the house with other Christians on a Sunday or in a connect group through the week. I wonder if you've distanced yourself from Jesus. Have you accused others? Over the past 12 months, have you allowed some stinking attitude to rise up against someone? And I wonder if you've said things like, I don't like those people. They are all hypocrites. They are all wrong. I'm right. You know, the kind of language, the way we justify ourselves. And I wonder if you've rebelled over these past 12 months. Have you decided that you know better than God? Have you read something in the Bible and decided that not only does what you read not apply to you, but you don't agree with it? Or maybe a spiritual leader in this church has given you some input and you've decided, I'm not listening to that. I've got my opinion, he's got his, and I'm sticking to mine. And so you become insulted and you've withdrawn. Of course you have. We've all done that over these past 12 months, and I include myself in that. Absolutely, I include myself in that. You and I have done every one of those things in the past 12 months. We've done exactly the same kind of things that Peter had done. The denial of Jesus, keeping Jesus at a distance, accusations, wrong treatment of others, God-dishonoring behavior towards others, rebellion against God's laws. That is exactly what we've all done, and that is exactly what put Jesus on the cross. That's what put Jesus on the cross. That's why he had to go to the cross. And you know what it's called? It's called, well, I'm sorry to use this word on a holy day, but it's called sin. 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 And it is so ugly and divisive, this sin. So foul is this sin that when Jesus went to the cross, it even separated God from his son Jesus. Sin always separates us from God. It always separates us from God. When Peter had his brain freeze and went out proclaiming that he was going to stick with Jesus and then did the exact opposite, sin entered him and he was separated from God. You see, the separation always takes place on our end of the continuum, never on God's end. We are always the one that create the kind of circumstances that cause that separation. It's sin. And each one of us is guilty of sin. If you're visiting today, or if you're here as a spiritual explorer, and you wonder why you don't feel God, or you wonder why you don't have a personal relationship with God, or you wonder why you don't understand the language of those who speak about intimacy with God, or you wonder why God seems like nothing more than some kind of philosophical discussion that some people like to have. That's the reason why you think like that. It's because of sin. It's because of this separation. And can I explain exactly what sin is in case it's misunderstood? Because, sin's not a popular word. It's seen more as a religious word, a word used by hypocrites. Everybody else is a sinner except those of us who claim to be Christians. And so sin and the whole meaning has been distorted. It's as simple as this. It's falling short of God's high standards. He set such high standards for us. And every one of us falls short of those standards. Every time we fall short, that's called sin, whatever it might be. And this is why we need to be saved. This is why every one of us in this room needs to be saved. We need saving from our own arrogance that says we don't need God. The arrogance that says, I know better than God. I don't agree with God. This is what put Jesus on the cross. This is why he was wrongly accused, beaten, and tortured, and separated from God his Father. When I consider those things and consider the injustice of it all, I find myself absolutely amazed at the response of Jesus. I read those verses that I read to you this morning after I'd done my own personal devotions, and I found myself just wondering again, how could Jesus respond the way that he did? So wrongly treated, so much injustice. I find it amazing, and I think his words are completely unforgettable. In Luke 23:32 and following, it tells us exactly what Jesus' response was. It says, 2 other men, both criminals, were led out with him to be executed. And when they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him along with the criminals, one on the right and the other on the left. And listen to this. This is what Jesus said, Father, forgive them. for they do not know what they are doing. I think the most unforgettable words in the Bible. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Despite all this injustice, despite the pain, the torment, the separation that he's experiencing from God his Father, his only response was, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Amazing, unforgettable, impacting. We are forgiven. All we have to do is accept this forgiveness, and we're able to live a life with God. That's the power of the cross. That's what we're celebrating today. That's why the symbolism of the cross is so important to us as Christians. The wonderful cross, the amazing cross. You know, earlier in the service, we sang these words out of that old hymn, when I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. And as we sang those words, we were acknowledging that no matter how good we are, no matter what we may achieve in life, it still falls far short of what Jesus achieved on the cross. It's a song about his amazing love for us, that while we were yet sinners, he died for us. These are the amazing things about the cross that should impact us this morning. Now, we hear about great men and women, courageous men and women who die for somebody good, somebody worthy of being saved. But who dies for somebody unworthy? Who dies for somebody who's not worthy of being saved? Only Jesus. Only Jesus. The cross ended the centuries-old practice of animal sacrifice. Up until the cross, this had to be repeated over and over again. Had to be repeated over and over again because sin was repeated over and over and over again. And there had to be a penalty for man's rebellion against God. But because God loved us so much, he didn't demand our blood. He allowed a substitute in our place, an animal sacrifice. But then came the cross. Then came Jesus, the final, once and for all sacrificial lamb whose blood was completely free from sin. Completely free from sin. Only his blood was good enough. And that's why he became that final sacrifice for sin. That's why John the Baptist made that amazing prophetic declaration when Jesus came with the crowds to the Jordan. There he is baptizing. He sees Jesus coming and points, look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. See, Jesus was the worthy lamb. He was the final sacrifice.